Welcome back. It is day 6 of the Israel-Palestine absolute disaster. Evacuations are now being called for in northern Gaza. Israel segmenting the country into two by essentially calling on civilians to relocate to the southern part of the Strip. It's almost like Israel is going to divide the country into two and say, look, we're going to rid the top half of Hamas first. Civilians leave. If you're left, well, then you're deemed hostile. So you've been given a fair warning. This somewhat makes sense, given that, after all, Israel can't push them all out to Egypt because, well, the Egyptian president has said, no thanks, we don't want them. Stay in your land. So it looks like potentially through the United Nations or the United States' visit or through negotiations with Israel and Egypt, a decision has been made to call on the evacuation of the top half of Gaza. It's about 1.1 million people. The Gaza Strip is, fascinatingly, about 50% children. I don't understand exactly how they've managed that, but it's about 1 million children. And there are slightly over 2 million people who live in the Gaza Strip. In case you haven't already heard, Joe Biden decided finally to flip-flop and freeze the $6 billion that were agreed to be released to Iran. This is Iranian oil money. It is not United States money, but we finally have a freeze back on this after the Hamas attack. Many were calling on this, not only Democrats, but also obviously Republicans in Congress. Over the last 13 hours, over the last 24 hours, Hamas says that strikes by Israel have killed over 13 hostages. This is not Hamas saying that they are killing hostages, despite the fact that they have threatened this before, which it's worth considering that Hamas originally said they would kill one hostage every hour for airstrikes that continue. And yet, 2 days ago, we see Hamas moving to actually release a woman and one or two of her children on video to show the peace that Hamas is trying to propose, I suppose, or to imply to the world. Who knows? But Israel is expected to now invade the upper half of Israel first. We do have oil jumping today. The stock market is trying to rotate up again. See the stock market here. These are the Qs. This is the NASDAQ. By the way, if you ever were going to invest in the NASDAQ via QQQ, I'd highly recommend you consider QQQM instead. QQQM has substantially lower fees, but it's the same thing as QQQ, roughly. And the reason there's a difference is because they spend all their marketing money on QQQ, so they pitch QQQ. Should be using QQQM. Something fun to worth knowing. But otherwise, you've got oil up about 3 to 4% today. Pretty hot as the U.S. tightens sanctions on Russia's crude sales. I don't understand why every time it seems like oil prices starting to trend down, the U.S. seems to want to push them back up. But anyway, bonds actually U-turning back today. We were up 10 basis points yesterday on Treasury yields. Now we're going down 10 basis points. It's wild. It's like, what's going on out there? Is it going to be up? Is it going to be bad? Is it going to be good? Who knows? We have inflation expectations that come out at 7 p.m. as well. We'll be covering that in this video, and that is 10 a.m. Eastern time. Let's go ahead and listen to the opening bell, and then we'll get some more updates in.
I'm just looking at the S&P because we're not trading futures here. We're investing in stocks. It's a very big difference.
With that in mind, let's get this final trading session of the week up and running. Opening bell today, CNBC Real-Time Exchange. And the big board, it's Wells, celebrating Diversity and Equity and Inclusion Month. We'll talk to the CFO in a couple of hours later on this morning. At the NASDAQ, it's Money Hero, a personal finance platform celebrating its listing via SPAC.
Well, I hope it goes well because I don't like SPACs. They've really hurt the people who watch us. And someone better watch out, so I'll just do it because I do not play for dinner, and I don't care.
Are you impressed that people appear to be...
Wow, look at that. About 70-ish% green. And we hit over here to El Stocco market. Looks like opening bids are coming in hot. Things moving back to the upside here after some of the dramatic moves that we saw yesterday of the potential reactivation of inflation via supercore coming in hot. A lot of folks, though, expecting that supercore reading to be abnormal and sort of a one-off. That the components that did come in hot are very unlikely to come in hot again. So that's when we talk about the economy. Okay, inflation expectations. We're about 30 minutes away from that. We'll see what's going on. We'll keep an eye on this. And then let's see. Okay, what do we got over here? And we're going to get some other updates. We've got the Philly Fed president suggesting it's time to leave rates where they are. You've got let's take a look at some of the other sort of smaller details. Oh, yesterday Israel started distributing leaflets, supposedly in the northern region of the Gaza Strip, encouraging individuals in the Gaza Strip to evacuate and suggesting that basically an attack was coming. Israel has hit over 750 targets in the Gaza Strip in just last night, which is crazy. Just the last night, 750 targets. We've got now more than 1,300 Israelis dead, plus the about 1,500 Hamas soldiers that rampaged Israel. And then you've got about 1,500 Palestinians. Secretary of State Blinken is still visiting the region. It looks like we're at about 27 dead Americans / dual citizens as well. A lot of Israelis jumping in to become reservists. In the United States has also identified 97, Israel has identified 97 individuals who are hostages and are expected to still be alive, but we shall see. Putin says Israel has the right to defend itself and calls for a Palestinian state, though. This is basically a way of saying, like, you can't put the Palestinians nowhere and completely eradicate their homeland. So who knows? Maybe this is a carve out of the top and control the top and just shrink Palestine into half. Well, I guess it would be a quarter since the West Bank will stay what it is. Gaza Strip potentially gets shrunk as opposed to completely eliminated. But who knows? Be very interesting. You've got once again, I'm just watching oil prices here. Oil prices still moving up about 3.62%, slight softening there for a moment. Watching those treasury yields as well, still down about 10 basis points on the 10-year and the 2-year drop in about 4. This is giving us a little bit more of an inverted yield curve. For those who aren't familiar with that, it's just basically we're saying, okay, does that mean there's a higher likelihood of a recession? We saw Steve Scalise drop out yesterday. I already know that. And the House is scrambling. I personally find it so wild that you have a company, you have an entity like Congress that can't find, out of 218 people that are Republicans in the House, one person, just one person that they can all get behind to lead them. I don't know. It really blows my mind. It just reiterates the dysfunction of Congress. But what are you gonna do? That's just unfortunately the government that we have. So a lot of civilians now fleeing down to the southern portion of Israel. When the strike first began, or this war and battle first began, one of my suggestions was get out of the most populated areas. That was a thought that I had, and I think that's exactly what's beginning to happen now as people are going to the more rural areas where there is less population density. Consider Gaza Strip broken into northern Gaza, Gaza City, and then you've got a couple of regions below that. Gaza City is where a lot of these airstrikes are taking place, along with some down by Rafah and Khan Yunis. But Gaza City has a population per square kilometer. So think square kilometer. 9,683. Whereas like Khan Yunis, where theoretically you could go to, is much more rural and has a density that's probably about 40% as large of that. You're at about 3,828 per square kilometer. This is per the BBC here, 9683. Yeah, wow, I just guessed that number. It's actually 39.5% when I actually do the math. I guessed 40%. So the United Nations says Gaza is rapidly becoming a hellhole and on the brink of utter collapse. Let's listen in here for a moment, and then we'll talk Donald Trump as well.
Be a brother.
This is no time for neutrality or for false equivalence or for excuses for the inexcusable. There is never any justification for terrorism.
So on working to recover those hostages, a senior U.S. defense official says American military personnel are in an advising capacity and that there is absolutely no intention of putting U.S. forces on the ground. We are also hearing that the Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group is leaving Norfolk, Virginia today. That is for previous.
And unfortunately, with the most corrupted.
President Biden dispatched the Gerald R. Ford Carrier Group to the region immediately after those attacks. A senior U.S. defense official says the United States has already given interceptor missiles to Israel, that more are on the way, and there is an expectation that more munitions will continue arriving, as much of what you're seeing here in Israel today from the United States. Dana, back to you.
All right, Rich Edson showing us what's happening on the ground there with the defense secretary. Thank you.
So on the northern border now in Lebanon, that's where Hezbollah resides, backed by Iran, says it's ready to join Hamas in the war against Israel when the time is right. Jonathan Hunt following that breaking news now with more today. Jonathan, what are we hearing?
Yeah, and Bill, as we look to what might be the future of this conflict, it has helped to look for lessons from the past. Now, back in 2006, the summer of 2006, Fox had sent me to Gaza. 2 days after we arrived there, Palestinian attackers broke through the border from Gaza into Israel and kidnapped an Israeli soldier that our viewers will remember. His name was Gilad Shalit. 3 days later, just 3 days after that, Israeli tanks rolled into Gaza then with the stated objective of destroying Palestinian rocket positions. Now then, and this is the important part, 2 weeks after that ground incursion, Hezbollah in the north decided to enter the conflict. They started firing rockets from their positions in southern Lebanon into northern Israel. They staged a cross-border raid, killed 3 Israeli soldiers and kidnapped another 2. Israel then responded with bombing raids against Hezbollah positions in Lebanon, and Hezbollah carried out repeated rocket attacks on northern Israel. And Hezbollah, we should remember, is far better armed even than Hamas. It has far more sophisticated precision rockets that can literally hit any city anywhere in Israel. And it's worth remembering, Bill, that the Lebanon war lasted a full month. The Gaza campaign back in 2006 lasted for 4 months. And remember, that was just to destroy rocket positions and to try to find Gilad Shalit. They had some success, of course, destroying those rocket positions. No success at that point in finding that Israeli soldier who was the single hostage. It took them 5 years, in fact, before they were able to get Gilad Shalit back. And now you think they have 150 hostages in Gaza. There's a long, long, tough road ahead, Bill.
It's excellent.
I really hope it is not long. I personally, the faster it goes, the faster you can focus on rebuilding and ending what's the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and minimizing the loss of life. Terrible. Elsewhere, there are a lot of folks who are referring to this clip of Donald Trump, Donnie T. In this, you're going to hear Donnie T. remind you to go to meetkevin.com because nobody has better courses on building your wealth and perspective. And for $89, with the price going up, expected to be double by the time the content comes out soon. We've got a price increase today. Go to meetkevin.com. They're on pre-sale right now until the content comes out. But they're fantastic. They're really great on how to make more money at your job, how to invest in real estate, exactly the cities we're looking at for real estate, exactly our strategies, how to never pay taxes, how to analyze stocks, how to renovate real estate, negotiate any deal and win, boost your productivity, sell anything to anyone, nutrition for entrepreneurs and high performers, retire early, build your personal brand, you name it. Check it out at meetkevin.com. Okay, let's listen to this because this got a lot of criticism. This is Donald Trump, and the quote that people use to take it out of context is, Hezbollah is very smart. Let's listen into the actual.
Imagine national defense people, and they said, gee, I hope Hezbollah doesn't attack from the north because that's the most vulnerable spot. I said, wait a minute. You know, Hezbollah is very smart. They're all very smart. The press doesn't like when they say it. You know, I said that President Xi of China, 1.4 billion people, he controls it with an iron fist. I said, he's a very smart man. They killed me the next day. I said he was smart. What am I going to say? But Hezbollah, they're very smart. And they have a national defense minister or somebody saying, I hope Hezbollah doesn't attack us from the north. So the following morning they attacked. They might not have been doing it, but if you listen to this jerk, you would attack from the north because he said that's our weak spot. Whoever heard of officials saying on television that they hope the enemy doesn't attack in a certain area? Now, unless it's a con job. But you know what a con job is? You're waiting there ready. You want them if you want them, but they weren't ready. They weren't ready. You know, say what you want. Israel would.
Okay. See, this is the thing. You know, there's so much to unpackage here, but I find it so entertaining because Donald Trump has mastered the media. Listen to what he just did. He goes, well, last time I called someone smart, the media went crazy about it, blah, 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 right? So what is he doing on purpose now? He's on purpose saying, nah, Hezbollah, very smart. Because he knows everybody's going to talk about it. And it's funny because when you look at it in context, what he's saying, it's not bad. And he knows that. Like, in the context of, yeah, it would be smart for the enemy to attack us where we have an Achilles heel. Okay? That is smart. It is also stupid to say, by the way, here's my Achilles heel, right? Like Trump says, unless, you know, it's like, right, this, I'm baiting you into my trap, right? Hey, I'm so weak, attack me here. But as usual, when the context is put in, you tend to, you know, the level of extremism that comes with, oh my gosh, Donald Trump said Hezbollah is smart, kind of goes away, and it just makes the mainstream media again look stupid. Whatever. All right.
World opinion changes. Then it will depend on the United States to defend them in world opinion, to defend them in the UN. But as to, you know, Gazans can't leave, won't leave, you've shown these maps. There it is on the screen. To the south is Egypt with a big empty Sinai. There's really no reason why Gazans who are fleeing shouldn't be able to go to Sinai. The UN could set up tent cities there. There are ways of handling this if people are really intent on trying.
Elliot Abrams, thank you. We'll be in touch.
So U.S. Army veteran Bob Stewart fought in the tunnels of Vietnam. He's got a story to tell, too. He shared it with Jesse last night in primetime about what it was like then and perhaps maybe how you can compare that to today.
So we'd take a concussion grenade, throw it in there first, scramble the brains of other people that's in there, then get the snakes out. Israelis learn from the Americans about how to handle these people. And it takes that special type of person that's willing to give their life up for their country and their loved ones and family, because it takes a lot of courage to go down inside of a dark hole with a 45 and a flashlight and hope for the best.
He told an amazing story. And to our viewers at home, you can find it online at Jesse's show page. It's worth watching. I would say the difference here is this. I've been to these tunnels in Vietnam right along the 17th parallel. And some of them run 100 yards deep into the ground. Wow. And they have different levels where they cook and shower or bathe. And then below that is where the women and children. And then below that was where the fighters would stay because the B-52 bombs were hitting the surface above them. The difference here is that was all dirt. All right? These are concrete, fortified tunnels that have been established for years. So you see Pete Hegseth, he was there in 2018, got his own tour during a more peaceful time. And you can just see how small they can be, Dana, and how nearly impenetrable they can be as well.
Well, that is something. I'm almost speechless because
it is interesting. They have about 1,300 tunnels, or at least that's currently the believed to be estimate. They're believed to be 1,300 tunnels in the Gaza Strip. Unfortunately, that does mean there's entirely the possibility that this incursion lasts many, many, many months. It's possible. I think that would be the horrible outcome. I think the easiest thing is just, like, let it happen. Let the top get controlled. Turn the power back on. Turn the water back on. We can go back to normal. Yeah. Anyway.
At college campuses less than 24 hours after an Israeli student was assaulted here at Columbia University. Hundreds then facing off in dueling protest on the campus yesterday. One student estimating nearly 500 gathered to support Palestine. At another protest at Hunter College across town, students telling Fox.
Okay, I don't personally, I don't know about you, but I don't care so much about the protest. What I do care about, though, are some more of the facts of what's going on. And what we talked about the other day is that it seemed like Hamas went dark in their planning of how they were going to attack Israel. That is, they went off phones, more like small, splinter cell groups that had specific tasks. And these are individuals who met, in remote areas, in person to plan their attack, so as not to be picked up by Israeli intelligence. But it's even more than that. Apparently, Hamas also has roughly been planning this attack for about 2 years, that they actually use cyber attacks on Israel to gather classified information on Israeli military staff, vehicle routes, like the work shifts of Israelis. They would know when and where the weak points were within the Israeli military along the border. They knew how many minutes it would take for the Israeli military to respond to an attack and how quickly they needed to get hostages out of Israel and back into Palestine. It was a rush. This is kind of reminds me of like Prison Break, you plan it all out and execute this, right? Anyway, they initiated their attack, obviously, by employing drones to target strategic posts. These are machine gun posts, followed, and then they also have comm towers. And when the comms were disabled, these guards were caught off guard, which said that there's the irony in that, a guard being caught off guard. It's like, well, wait a minute, I guess they weren't beating a guard then. But anyway, you're overrun, of course, you're understaffed. And there are, as a result of that, some people who say, wait, how could you have been understaffed? Let's follow up on that. Let's listen to this first.
Several hours earlier today. What do you have now? Hello.
Yeah, Bill, good morning. Those rockets continue to come off the Gaza Strip. Earlier today, Hamas fired on the northern city of Haifa, a very rare occurrence because they only have a few long-range rockets inside Gaza, but those short-range rockets are being surprisingly effective given the missile defense around here. I want to show you the scene here. One of those rockets slamming into a building, a residential area near to the Gaza border. You can see the destruction here and the explosion. We were looking across the way, and there are families in the area. Some people are out on balconies right now looking at the destruction, and they're at home. It's the weekend, and they're about to enter into Shabbat, which is a period in Israel where most people are resting. I will tell you, though, something interesting about Shabbat this weekend. There will be a special radio for observant Jews who normally wouldn't use any sort of technology, that they can keep on the radio all weekend in case there's any sort of air raid alert or something else that they need to hear. And it's only used during emergency times and declarations of war. And we are in the middle of one right now. As the rocket fire continues from Gaza, Israel is still learning more about the atrocities committed against their people throughout the day on Saturday when those Hamas militants entered the southern part of this country. Yesterday, we went to the site of that music festival where 260 people were gunned down. Here's what it looked like. You can see here in the parking lot of this festival a motorcycle that was used by Hamas militants when they entered from the Gaza Strip into southern Israel. The cars here are filled with things you would bring to stay over: shoes and bags, hairbrushes, and makeup. This was supposed to be a joyous occasion, and it turned into a nightmare for so many. More than 260 people were gunned down here before those militants went on to the next village, slaughtering women and children.
We're going to bring all the warriors of Israel to pass through this festival that was supposed to be love and music. They're going to pass through here. They're going to see the massacre. They will know what they're fighting for. We're taking now the cameras from all the cars, and we will see with faces everyone that was part of this massacre. We will reach to him. He will be dead.
That was the spokesman for the Israeli military, Daniel Hagari. You could see the pain in his eyes and hear the anger in his voice. The Israelis are preparing to bring the fight to Hamas. Bill.
Thanks, Trey.
Yeah, I find that so fascinating. This idea of here's an emergency radio that you could use during these times, so that you're not violating religious norms and practices. Let's see here. Putin, by the way, now on reports of Ukraine weapons in Palestine. Putin says, "I doubt there were arms supplies from Ukraine, but there was a leak of weapons from Ukraine." This is Putin. Okay, this is a little confusing. He says, "Okay, I don't doubt there was a leak." So he believes there was a leak of weapons from Ukraine, but he does not believe they went to Palestine. Yeah, I don't think he wants more punishing here. Putin's also arguing that the Gaza Strip blockade is unacceptable. You know what's interesting is Putin's pulling a very media-centric view. I mean, he's usually way quieter, right? But he's coming out with all these comments about hey, you got to be humanitarian. You can't leave these poor people stuck in the Gaza Strip. You got to have you can't take all of the Gaza Strip. You can't take their country away. You can't trap them in if they want to leave for humanitarian purposes like Egypt's doing. And it's really interesting because what Putin is saying is, and it's crazy to say these lines, right? You never think you would say this kind of phrase, but those are reasonable statements from Putin. And using Putin and reasonable in the same sentence just feels wrong. But those are reasonable statements. And it's almost part of the PR mission of when you're hated, you come out in solidarity or in solidarity of common cause, and it makes you seem less evil, less maniacal, manic, whatever. Kind of wild to think about with Putin. But anyway, we're going back to this Hamas attack and the planning. It is fascinating. Hamas soldiers, bodies of Hamas soldiers, have had maps found on their bodies by civilians and otherwise. And these maps show very careful documentations of where the kindergartens are, where the churches are, where the civilian hideout locations would be. They would document the vulnerabilities of different armored vehicles, enabling them to take out vehicles by aiming at the right parts of the vehicle, the least armored parts of, let's say, a tank, for example. Hey, maybe if for this particular model of tank, if you shoot it right on the corner, it's it's weakest with its armor and it disables. You shoot it right on the side, that's where the thickest armor is, and it keeps going. I thought was a very good piece. I actually have it here. We could go through some parts of it here that we didn't already hit. But the documents were written in Arabic. We could see here an example of a map as Israeli soldiers are holding these up. All of the documents are marked confidential or top secret. Here's another example showing you, okay, hey, target the tank in these locations versus these other parts. You've got details of what weapons you might find. Why does this matter? Because when you attack a military of another side, one of the things that you'll do is you'll pick up their weapons, and then it's nice to be able to know how to use those weapons when you pick them up. And this is why you get this. But the sophistication was pretty wild. The cyber attacks, and it shows you some of the depth the advanced planning that's only becoming more apparent now as a result of picking up what some of these Hamas soldiers left behind. Yeah, specifically, look at this. A separate document focused on the purported weak points in the Israeli army's main battle tank, Merkava, advising that attackers shoot at it from a 50-meter distance. Wild. Good.
Doctor. So thank you for sharing it with us. Good luck.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Dana.
Well, there's chaos on Capitol Hill following Majority Leader Steve Scalise's decision to drop out of the Speaker race yesterday. So House Republican lawmakers are set to hold a closed-door meeting just moments from now as the party scrambles to elect a new nominee.
Get it together, Congress. Good Lord.
Fox team coverage on this part of the story. Aisha Hasni is standing by. But first, let's go to Chad Pergram on Capitol Hill for an overview. Hi, Chad.
Dana, good morning. There is a sense of desperation among Republicans. This is day 10 without a speaker. Steve Scalise dropped out because he couldn't get the votes. Some members were locked on Jim Jordan and no one else. He's the next man up.
I think we will come together behind a candidate, and then we will move forward for the good of the country. I think that'll happen tomorrow.
But there is concern Jordan may face the same problem as Scalise. He may have lots of support, but lack the votes to win on the floor. The House is now in a state of unprecedented chaos. Tempers are short.
I think members have got to get it through their heads that they're squandering a majority. The American.
Yeah. It's likely not untrue. But then again, there's a limit to how much you could do with a majority anyway. Oftentimes when you have this divided Congress where you have a Democratic president and a Democratic, Senate, really what you can do is you could just sandbag your opponent. So that's usually what ends up happening in these sort of environments. Anyway, Goldman Sachs taking a very interesting point here on oil. With oil, they're suggesting, hey, look, you're going to see some countries start reducing production of oil. Especially there being downside risks to Iranian oil production, which could lead oil prices to rise up to as much as $105 per barrel. Right now, we're sitting at about 88. This call for $100 per barrel, always seems to get shorted. It doesn't seem to make it there every time we have like an oil rally. It always seems to get sold off. Even the oil rally today with international blend up, the international blend Brent up 3.13%. It was up 4% earlier. It just always seems to get sold as soon as the day opens. But anyway, Goldman Sachs suggesting we're looking for that 105 as a price target, assuming there'll be some more production cuts. Also worth noting, though, they're not trying to lower prices of oil by producing maybe more in other countries like Saudi Arabia. What you're getting is certain areas that might see a decline in production, and then other areas that are like, okay, well, if they reduce production because they have to or whatever, then we will increase production to offset that. And then, of course, whatever country increases production is able to profit more. So it always comes down to profit. Economic motivators are a pretty big deal. And, somebody else's production goes down. You're like, you know what? I'll take it.
Has already come to a quiet.
We are 1 minute from inflation expectations, by the way. This is also a big deal for the Fed. It is possible that the stabilizing impacts of conflict and uncertainty in the Middle East could end up leading to a hot read here on inflation expectations. Inflation expectations do have a potential risk for essentially the stock market to go down if the inflation expectations come in too hot. What we have for inflation expectations worth noting. And remember the new Verse Pro courses that those coupon codes expire tonight. If you want to bundle all of them up together, email us at staff@meetkevin.com. We'll get you that profit portal, which gets you access to everything. The older lectures, the in-depth ones, the crash courses, every single one of them. It's a pretty great deal. But here what the expectations are in inflation. 1 year, and it's coming out in about 10 seconds. 1 year, we're looking for 3.2. 5 to 10 years out, we're looking at 2.8. Here we go. We'll also get sentiment on current conditions in that. And, that's terrible. 1 year expectations coming at 3.8. Big beat to the upside. Not good. Not good. Probably going to lead stocks to sell down right away. That was a concern because of the Middle East conflict. 5 to 10-year inflation expectations also shoot up from 2.8% to 3%. Oh, no. Overall sentiment read also comes in weaker than expected. That weaker read is 63 versus 67 expected. We got current conditions coming in weaker than expected, 66.7 versus 70.3. Expectations in general coming in at 60.7 versus 65.7. It is highly likely that these numbers are a reaction to the pain in the Middle East, but this is not good. It's probably going to lead stocks to sell down. This is the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey. This is your preliminary read for the month, and this is this crisis in the Middle East has been going on for roughly about 6 days now. This read, though, a lot rougher than expected. Next release will be October 27th for these numbers here. Let's see here. Listen to this. Consumer sentiment fell about 7% this October following 2 months of very little change. Assessments of personal finances declined 15% on a substantial increase in concerns over inflation, and one-year expected business conditions plummeted 19%. Yikes, not a good survey. Long-run expected business conditions are little changed, suggesting that consumers believe the current worsening in economic conditions will not persist. Could also be because rates have gone up so high. The 10-year treasury skyrocketed as high as it did. 4.8%, 4.7%. It's wild. I actually think it's falling today, but it might actually just start rising again after this report. Still down about 9 basis points right now, 4.62. Nearly all demographic groups posted a setback in sentiment, reflecting the continued weight of high prices. Remember, there's a difference between inflation and high prices. I know it sounds crazy. It pisses everybody off. And you're right to be pissed off, Grocery store prices, they are higher. Rent is way higher. Home prices, way higher. Rates, way higher. Car prices, higher. Everything is more expensive. However, at least the trend of prices continuing to rise is really starting to slow, and that is something to cheer, and we hope that continues. But these expectations, boy, not great. Again, that 3.8 on the one-year inflation expectations versus 3.2. Stock market ain't gonna like that at all. So we're getting some red candles coming through on the NASDAQ right now. We can take a brief look at this, and we'll get back to updates on Israel. Here's some of the red candles we're getting on the Qs. Here are the red candles you're getting on the SPY. You can see that sell down. Look at a fave of many here. Look at that. You get the Tesla selling down as well. So it does look like you're getting some of that downward pressure here again on substantially worse than expected consumer sentiment data and inflation expectations data. RIP, not great. We'll get a look at what some of Wall Street is saying as well. Do keep in mind, I'm personally not as bearish as many people are. I do not think that there is a reason to be substantially bearish. That is not to say that, if I want to be very clear, it's not to say inflation is gone. It's not to say inflation is going to go away very soon. But it is to say, just based on what we're reading in terms of leading indicators and studying every single day about companies. Remember, as a licensed financial advisor, we do this stuff every single day. We're studying markets. We're studying what's going on. We're studying our real estate markets. We're studying what's going on with businesses and locations. There is a softening in real estate prices that's coming this winter. It's already started. That softening is here. This is true. And there are pain points, but I don't think they rise to the level of saying, that's it, you need to be completely uninvested in the market. You need to get out. This is bad. I don't actually see it that bad. And I had an interesting perspective I was talking about yesterday with some Google employees, amazing people. And, initially when these layoffs occurred at Google and Microsoft and otherwise, there was a thought that this was just the first wave. This was the beginning, trim. We got to get ready for recession or whatever. There's sentiment that maybe these companies actually trimmed more than they should have. And that the companies thought the economy was about to head into an even worse disaster than it was really going to, or that it really ended up, and that now things are substantially better, especially for the richer companies. They're certainly making a lot more money. Look at JP Morgan, another record today with earnings. Yet another beat from the company. I mean, JP Morgan, they just killed it in this banking crisis. Everybody wanted to go to them. It makes sense. I mean, where are you going to potentially be safest, right? So that's exactly what happened. And what happens then is you get a consolidation of banking, and you'll eventually in the future end up with very, very few banks. JP Morgan up 5%, at least before consumer sentiment came out. After consumer sentiment, they're still up about 4.55%. I'll give you some updates here on JP Morgan, and we'll get back to Israel here. But JP Morgan comes in with total deposits exceeding expectations, $2.38 trillion. Revenue beats at $40.6 billion of revenue. Return on equity coming in at 18% versus the 16% expected. I mean, these are absolutely insane numbers. Investment banking beats, equities and trading misses slightly. I mean, that's normal. There's a lot less trading going on than people expect right now. Consumers generally remain healthy. Businesses generally remain healthy. Consumers are spending down their excess cash buffers. You know what I notice is gun sales are way down. Gun sales are getting smoked. I think that may be because a lot of people bought a lot of the guns they wanted in, post like stimulus era, and right after the Biden election, maybe even right before the Biden election. But so the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, you get stimulus, you get Democratic control after January of 2021. And I think you got a lot of gun purchasing that happened early on. And now it just feels like a lot of the gun stores I'm seeing, they're talking about slower. I mean, everywhere I go, I'm like, how are sales? When I actually go out, like what's going on, any changes? And the gun stores, they're the ones that are really suffering right now. It seems to be, at least that based on what they're telling me. But and again, that's just my little sample of the people I talk to. But anyway, core outlook, and it's not just in California either. Okay, I go to gun stores in other states too. But anyway, you got to browse, you got to survey everywhere. Anyway, capital increases, a major headwind to return. JP Morgan, you guys are fine. They don't want more restrictions from the Fed. We'll have to reprice some deposits, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, but I mean, smashing earnings here. And usually where you start seeing some of these stresses is banking. And you're really not seeing those major stresses. So as far as the economy as a whole, I'm not convinced on the trajectory for the economy. You really can't be. But at this point, it certainly doesn't seem like it would make sense to revisit some of the low stock market prices that we had at the end of last year. In fact, I think if you purposely look at the Qs, for example, it entirely makes sense that we're experiencing this volatility where we sit right now. I mean, look how much higher we are now compared to where we sat at the end of last year. So it entirely makes sense that we're getting rejected by the 375 line over and over again. Right now, we're sitting just above the 100-day moving average, and we're sitting just above this long-term trend. This yellow line here, pretty long-term trend here. It used to act as a resistance. Now it acts as support. And it is a very heavily traded line, in my opinion. And you have really support there at about 355 on the Qs. The fact that we're not testing that yet, the fact that we're not even testing the 100-day moving average, which is right now 365, is a sign that even after hot inflation, even after hot consumer sentiment data, people are still not wanting to sit out this market, because I think they realize that, in 5 years out, probably going to be in a lot better of a situation. So, if you're investing for the short term, you want to be careful. But anyway, there is this day of rage talk that's also circulating. And, yesterday I suggested, hey, look, there are two outcomes here. Either nothing happens, which is the best case scenario, which then dilutes these calls for jihad in the future, because it sort of makes it look like a joke. That's on one hand a possibility. Or, if something does happen, then it does create terror and more fear and even more uncertainty in the economy. And don't get me wrong, prices are high. There is a lot of uncertainty. I think sometimes people get mad at me. They're like, Kevin, oh, you're just out of touch. You're out of touch. You don't know. I'm like, oh, no. I see it. I see how high the prices are. I feel it. I see it when I go to areas. I talk with everyone I can get my hands on. I grab people. What's going on? No, really, it's obvious, okay? Inflation is there. Inflation exists. Everybody's felt it. It is here. But I do think it's interesting, the amount of fear that high prices have caused, that the economy is almost certainly going to a recession, is so great. And unfortunately, I think it's skewed to the, to the extreme, which is not good, because then that eliminates people from wanting to invest. It reduces people's hope that things can be better in the future. There's a lot of pessimism in the economy right now, and I don't know that it is as justified, as pessimistic as folks are. Anyway, let's get back into Fox here for a moment.
Burnt down and then being murdered or being taken as hostages. That's one of the reasons that happened.
Yeah, and you build those safe rooms because you want to protect yourself and your family from rockets, but not
intruders.
That's right.
Okay, see, this is the problem. Far real. I'm gonna hold on. Let me see what this alert is really quick. It's probably nothing.
The U.S. and get out of Israel.
Yeah, of course, it's nothing. Okay, Fox does that all the time. I swear it's because they know people are listening with the stuff on mute, and then they throw up the breaking news banner, and there's literally no breaking news, but they just want you to turn on the volume. It's actually kind of brilliant. So there's a comment here that says, Kevin, didn't you say you believed in the Kathy Woodian argument of inflation being dead, but now you're saying inflation is here? See, what's incredible is people think that both of those can't be true. I want you to think to yourself and it drives me nuts. I have to make this argument, I feel like, daily, but I want you to ask yourself, can both of these things be true at the same time or not? Think about that for a moment here, while I quickly give you an update that Microsoft just completed its $69 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard. We also have a question here. Superstorm Jackson says, Kevin, am I able to invest in HouseHack with half from a credit card and half from an ACH bank transfer? Yeah, as long as the minimum of each of those transfers is $5K. Otherwise, the system's just not set up for it otherwise. But, the other option would be you could wire. But yeah, remember, HouseHack is having its investment round expire. I believe we got November 1st or 3rd. We have to nail that down, but I think it's Fed Day, which is November 1st. And we're closing the round potentially forever, but certainly for the end of or for the rest of this year. That's because we're going back into aggressive shop mode for November, December. That is the time that we do not want to be fundraising in November, December, because we actually want to be on the ground actively working. Fundraising is a pain in the ass. Anyway, okay, so let's answer this question really quickly. Kevin, didn't you say you believed in the Kathy Woodian argument of inflation being dead, but now you're saying inflation is here? Okay, inflation is, and the Kathy Woodian deflation is the rate of price changes, okay? When Pepsi raises prices 2% and inflation is 3%, it means they don't have the ability to raise prices on consumers anymore, and you actually have a negative real change in the prices of Pepsi, for example. But let's simplify that. When you look at IKEA furniture, January of 2023, and you look at it now, it's cheaper now than it was. Prices coming down. That does not mean prices are lower than what they were in 2019. And newsflash, they're not going to go back down to what prices were in 2019. I want to be so clear about that. Everybody's got to look at what prices are and go, shit, this sucks. Everything's more expensive. Damn it. Okay, we can be frustrated about it, but they ain't going to go all the way back down. It's just not going to happen. Now, will there be price deflation in time? Probably. But as soon as we start facing price deflation, they're just going to turn the money printers back on, because deflation is also really bad. That's why we have a 2% inflation target. You want lowering and falling inflation, but you still want some inflation because it encourages spending, GDP growth. It's good for debtors like the United States government. Okay, it's all planned out on purpose that way. So both of these can be true. The Kathy Woodian argument can be true that inflation can be dead. The continued rise of prices that can be close to zero or under 2%. But inflation has been here. So yes, both of these can be true. This is why you need some real estate, says someone. Exactly. This is the difference of disinflation and deflation. Correct. Deflation, falling prices. Disinflation, prices going up at a lower rate. The easiest way to think about it, and then I'm going to get back to some news here. Easiest way to think about it is something was $100 1 year. The next year, it's $120. What was the inflation? 20%. The next year, it goes to $122. Okay, what was the inflation rate? I don't know, like 1.8% or something like that. Notice how then the inflation rate went from 20% to like 1.8%, right? That doesn't mean prices are now less than the $100 or back to $100. No, it's still $20 more expensive. And it sucks. But what are you going to do about it? Nothing. You have two choices. Well, I mean, I guess you could do a combination of them, but in my opinion, you have two choices. You can bitch about it and do nothing, or you can bitch about it and try to work harder and provide more value to society and build more wealth for your family. Those are the two choices you have. And I'm not talking about like rented wealth, like Andrew Tate, who, rents his plane for a day or whatever from a charter service. I'm talking about real wealth for your family. Anyway.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Jillian Turner at the State Department. For
Just wanted to detail a little bit of what the State Department's saying about how these Americans can get out. Remember, Ron DeSantis yesterday, the Florida governor, said that he was going to fly planes into Israel now. And his office put out a number of more than 20,000 Americans that want to leave. I think it was the only place that we've heard, Dana, a number, right? The State Department hasn't given us one. The White House hasn't given us one. Where they got 20,000, we do not know. But if that's true, you can imagine just how many people are involved here and how long it could take. All right, back to this area here. Jerusalem is right about, let me try and pull this up here, is roughly here, okay? This is the west.
Yes, telecommunications are getting screwed. So there are definitely sectors that are getting screwed. Absolutely sectors getting sued. Rate his suit? Come on, man. He's got the French cuffs, a purple tie, a little pocket protector. I like it, actually, I mean, it's not a bad suit. I can't tell what pants we got over here. I wish they were matching. Okay, they're not matching. I don't like the sports coat and then the non-match, unless they're jeans. If it's jeans, it's okay, but those look like slacks. Could have had matching. Okay, there's your rate the suit. I've never done that before. Somebody in the comments. Y'all are funny. Somebody here says, fire Jerome. I honestly think if Jerome Powell stitches this soft landing, he's going to be a hero. He's going to go down as a hero if he stitches this, or nails this soft landing. I believe it, and I think it's possible. They're going to build statues of this guy. It's going to be nutty. Speaking of Jerome Powell, by the way, quick note. Did you know that I dressed up for Halloween as Jerome Powell? That's me. And then that's actually my father-in-law who dressed up as Janet Yellen. And we were giving money. We had a money printer. And so we went and got money and started, giving money away. We actually gave $2 bills away. And we built the little Federal Reserve out front. You can look this up on YouTube if you want to see it. It's free money, Jerome Powell's Halloween. And yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Government can make things better. But I would also, there are ports up and down the west coast of Israel, which also could be used. And some have said, Dana, that the American government's a little bit behind. I got to think they're right.
Oh, speaking of which, it actually, look at the suit. I'm basically wearing the same suit as the guy. I got the French cuffs too. That's too funny. And there's my little son above my head there.
For a day of rage around the world, tens of thousands now protesting in the Middle East over Israel's retaliation against the terror group. The latest on the chaos and where this could all be heading next.
Okay, I got to make a cup of coffee. Then we got to do some analysis, deep diving in the course member live streams. Make sure to join the course member live streams if you haven't yet before. Make sure to check out HouseHack. Go to househack.com. Read the offering circular. It's a fantastic company. And very excited about what we're going to be able to do with HouseHack. Obviously, there's always a risk investing in a startup. But go learn about it all at househack.com. You'll learn everything there. Or just go to meetkevin.com. Check out on a Nuverse Pro course at the top. You'll see my actively managed ETF. You'll see financial advice, Shadow Kevin, HouseHack, our free newsletter. Everything's there. Now I got to get into the boring part. All right. Even though I'm a licensed financial advisor, I'm a real estate broker. I'm becoming a stockbroker as well. This video is not personalized financial or real estate advice for you, nor is it tax, legal, or otherwise personalized advice. This video is generalized information and perspective. This video is not and shall never be deemed reasonably sufficient information for the purposes of evaluating a security or investment decision. Any links or promoted products like StreamYard, our sponsor of the channel, metkevin.com/StreamYards, are either paid affiliations or products or services which we may profit from. Always conduct your own research, and none of the information I provide on securities are licensed research reports. And we definitely have bullish positions on the stock market and no shorts right now. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.